The weekend we pretended to be in love and forgot to stop. I still remember the first time Noah asked me to pretend. We were sitting in the corner booth of McKinley's Diner, the kind of place that always smelled faintly of syrup and burnt coffee, even at night. The neon sign outside flickered, open in red and blue, casting our faces in alternating colors. He was stirring his milkshake with a straw, not looking at me, which was how I knew he was about to ask for something big. "I need you to be my boyfriend," he said. I laughed before I realized he wasn't joking. "What? Just for a weekend?" He looked up then, and his eyes, hazel with flecks of gold, were dead serious. "My sister's getting married. You know how my family is. If I show up alone, it's going to be a 3-day interrogation. But if I bring someone, if I bring you, it's different." "Noah," I said, because that's what I always did when he came up with one of his impulsive plans. I said his name like it was a warning, but I never actually told him no. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. "We've been friends for 10 years, Eli. We know everything about each other. We can pull this off." I should have said no. I should have told him it was too dangerous, too close to a line I'd spent years trying not to cross. Because here's the thing. I'd been in love with Noah since sophomore year of high school. And if there's one thing worse than unrequited love, it's pretending you've got the real thing for an entire weekend. But I agreed. Maybe because the idea of being able to hold his hand, even if it was fake, was worth the risk. We left on a Friday morning in his beat-up Jeep, the back seat stuffed with suit bags and duffel bags. The drive to his hometown was 4 hours, long enough for my brain to replay every single warning sign I'd ignored. He briefed me on the details like we were going undercover. "We've been dating for, let's say, 6 months, he said, glancing at me between turns on the highway. "We met at that coffee shop you love, the one with the terrible muffins. My family knows you from high school, but they don't know us. So they'll probably think it's a slow burn thing." "Accurate," I muttered. "And we're affectionate, but not too much," he went on. "My mom will love you. My dad will probably give you that handshake where he tries to break your hand. My aunt will ask if we're moving in together. My brother will make jokes that aren't funny." He rattled off the script so casually, like he hadn't just dropped me into my own personal emotional minefield. When we pulled into his parents' driveway, my heart was doing somersaults. Their house was the same as I remembered from summers past. White siding, blue shutters, and a porch swing that creaked when the wind caught it. The smell of cut grass and barbecue hung in the air. Noah's mom came out first, arms wide, eyes bright. She hugged him, then turned to me. "Eli, oh my gosh, it's been years. And now you're dating my son." I glanced at Noah, who smiled like this was the most natural thing in the world. His hand slipped into mine, warm and easy. "Yeah," he said. "Finally." The word "finally" hit me like a stone dropped into water. Ripples I couldn't stop. The weekend unfolded in moments, some planned, some dangerously spontaneous. At the rehearsal dinner, we sat close enough that our knees touched under the table. He poured me water without asking, his arm brushing mine. When someone asked how we met, he told the story so well I almost forgot it wasn't real. How I spilled coffee on him, how he made a joke to make me feel better, how I smiled in that way he couldn't forget. At the family bonfire that night, he draped his hoodie over my shoulders when the air turned cold. His mom watched us from across the flames, a soft smile on her face, and I felt something sharp in my chest. We weren't just convincing them. We were convincing me. But it wasn't all easy. On Saturday afternoon, his older brother Mark cornered us in the kitchen. "So," Mark said, sipping a beer, "when's the wedding?" I laughed it off, but Noah just smirked. "Give us time." The words lodged in my throat, not because they were a lie, but because a part of me wanted them to be true. Later, while we were walking back to his old bedroom, I said quietly, "You're enjoying this too much." He gave me a sideways glance. "You're not." I didn't answer. Saturday night was the wedding itself. The church glowed with warm light, and the reception hall was strung with fairy lights that made everything look softer, more romantic. During the slow dances, Noah kept a hand at my waist, steady and sure, like it belonged there. When the photographer asked for a couple's picture, he pulled me in, our faces close enough that I could see the little scar on his upper lip from when he'd fallen off his bike at 12. "Smile," he whispered. And I did, because in that second I wasn't pretending. It wasn't until Sunday morning, when the weekend was almost over, that the cracks started to show. We were packing our bags in his old bedroom, the one with faded posters and a dent in the wall from a long-forgotten wrestling match. "So," I said, trying to sound casual, "what's our plan for when we get back?" "What do you mean?" he asked, stuffing socks into his bag. "I mean, are we going to tell people it's over? That it was just for the weekend?" He froze for a second, then shrugged. "Yeah, I guess. Unless you want to keep the bit going." I laughed, but it came out hollow. The bit. It was a joke to him. For me, it had been something else entirely. I wanted to tell him right then, to lay it all out, that I'd been in love with him for years, that this weekend had been the best and worst thing that had ever happened to me. But the words stayed in my chest, locked up tight. Because if pretending was all I could have, maybe it was better than nothing. On the drive home, he reached over at a red light and squeezed my hand. "Thanks, Eli. You were perfect." I turned to look at him, and in that moment, I wondered if I could survive going back to just being his friend. The first week back was brutal. It wasn't that Noah ignored me, he didn't. In fact, if anything, he was more present than usual. He texted me memes, called to ask if I wanted to grab lunch, and even swung by my apartment unannounced with Thai food, because he ordered too much. But every interaction felt loaded now, heavy with all the things I wasn't supposed to feel. I'd gotten a taste of what it might be like to be his, and now every casual brush of his arm, every easy laugh we shared, just reminded me that it wasn't real. I kept telling myself it had been just a game, a performance. But in the quiet moments, when I was brushing my teeth at night or staring at the ceiling in bed, I could still feel the weight of his hand at my waist, hear the warmth in his voice when he'd said, "finally," to his mom. It wasn't fading. It was deepening. On Thursday, a week after the wedding, we went out for drinks with friends. We ended up at our usual bar, where the music was too loud and the lights were too dim to make sense of anyone's expression. Halfway through the night, I went outside for some air. The summer heat clung to everything, and the smell of cigarette smoke drifted from the other end of the patio. I was scrolling through my phone when I heard his voice. "Hey, you disappeared." I looked up. He was standing there, a beer in one hand, the collar of his t-shirt stretched from where someone had probably grabbed him in the crowd. "Needed a breather," I said. He stepped closer. "You've been weird all week." I almost laughed. "Weird?" "Yeah, distant." Did I do something? I wanted to say, "You made me fall for you harder than I already had, and now I don't know how to function." But instead, I shook my head. "It's nothing." He studied me for a moment like he could see straight through me. "You sure?" "Positive." I lied. 2 days later, he invited me over for a movie night. We'd done this 100 times. Sprawled on his couch with takeout, watching something half-heartedly while talking about everything and nothing. But that night, the air felt charged. He was sitting closer than usual, our thighs almost touching. At one point, he reached over me to grab the remote, his arm brushing my chest, and I swear my heart tripped over itself. Halfway through the movie, he paused it and turned to me. "Okay, seriously," he said. "What's going on with you?" I stared at the frozen image on the screen rather than at him. "What do you mean? You've been off since the wedding. Did something happen? Did someone say something?" My throat felt tight. "No, it's just, I think maybe pretending to be your boyfriend messed with my head a little." He leaned back, eyebrows raised. "Messed with your head?" "Yeah. I rubbed the back of my neck. It was nice. Too nice. And now I'm just trying to recalibrate, I guess." There was a long pause. His eyes searched mine, and for a second I thought he was going to say something important. But then he just nodded slowly. "I get that." Only I wasn't sure he did. We didn't talk about it again for another month. Life moved on, work deadlines, friends' birthdays, the steady rhythm of routine. But underneath it all, the tension stayed. Then, one Friday night, he texted me, "Wanna come over? Got something to tell you." I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. On my way. When I got there, he was pacing in his living room, hands shoved in his pockets. He looked up when I came in, his expression unreadable. "What's going on?" I asked. He took a deep breath. "Remember when we got back from my sister's wedding? And you said pretending messed with your head?" "Yeah." My voice was careful. "Well, it messed with mine too." The words hit me like a jolt. I blinked. "What do you mean?" He stepped closer, his voice quieter now. "I thought I was just asking you for a favor. But that weekend, I don't know, Eli, felt real. Too real. And I've been trying to figure out if that was just the act or if—" He trailed off, searching my face. "If it's been there this whole time." My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear myself when I said, "It's been there." Something shifted in his eyes, relief maybe, or recognition. And then, before I could second-guess it, he leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't like the fake kisses we'd done for show that weekend. This one was slower, deeper, almost hesitant. Like he was learning me for the first time, even though we'd been in each other's lives for a decade. When we finally pulled back, I was breathless. "So," he said, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Still want to stop pretending?" I shook my head. "Not even a little." The first few weeks of being actually together felt strange. Strange in a good way, but still strange. We'd been friends for so long that our routines were carved in stone. Friday night beers at Murphy's. Sunday morning coffee runs. Movie marathons on rainy days. Those things didn't stop, but now they were threaded with something new. He'd reach for my hand in the middle of a conversation. Kiss me while the popcorn was still in the microwave. Rest his head on my shoulder while we scrolled through our phones. Like it was the most natural thing in the world. The transition from friends to something more wasn't a clean break. It was like our friendship had been quietly in love all along, and now we just stopped pretending otherwise. Not everyone took it in stride. When we told his mom, she beamed like she'd been waiting years. His sister squealed and pulled me into a hug, whispering, "Finally." Just like Noah had that first day. His brother Mark just smirked and said, "Guess I should start planning your wedding now." But outside the family bubble, there were harder conversations. A couple of our old high school friends made awkward jokes when they heard, the kind where you couldn't tell if they were trying to be funny or if they just didn't know how to react. One even asked if this was just a phase, and I had to bite my tongue hard enough to taste blood. Noah handled it better than I did. "People will get used to it," he said one night as we lay tangled on my couch. "Or they won't. Either way, I'm not going anywhere." That helped. More than I wanted to admit. But love, even the kind you've been secretly carrying for years, doesn't erase fear. One night, a few months in, we got into our first real argument. It wasn't about anything huge. He'd canceled dinner plans last minute because his boss called him in for some emergency, and I snapped at him for always putting work first. He snapped back, "I can't just drop everything because you're upset, Eli." I hated the way his voice sounded in that moment. Sharp, like it wanted to cut. We went quiet after that. He went to bed early. I stayed up on the couch, staring at the muted TV, wondering if we'd already managed to mess this up. But in the morning, he came out of his room, hair messy, eyes still tired, and sat beside me without saying anything. He just took my hand. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't mean it like that." "I'm sorry too," I said. I'm scared of losing this. Of losing you." His grip on my hand tightened. "You're not going to." And for the first time, I believed him. The months blurred together in a rhythm that felt like home. We spent the holidays with both our families, bouncing between houses and traditions, our own little in-jokes carrying us through the chaos. We took a weekend trip to the coast, where we walked along the cold, windy beach with our hands shoved into the same pocket of his hoodie. Sometimes, late at night, he'd roll over in bed and just look at me. "I still can't believe we wasted 10 years, he'd say, smiling in the dark. I'd smile back. Maybe we needed them. Because as much as I sometimes wished we'd gotten here sooner, I knew the truth. We'd both needed the years of friendship, the history, the trust to make this real. It's been over a year now since that wedding weekend. We still talk about it sometimes. How he'd leaned across that diner table and asked me to pretend. How I'd said yes, knowing it might break me. Only it didn't break me. It saved me. Because that was the weekend we stopped lying to ourselves. The weekend we realized we'd been more than friends for a long time. We just hadn't said it out loud. Now, when people ask how we met, we tell the coffee shop story. We tell them about the terrible muffins, about the years in between. But when they ask when we really got together, we just smile at each other and say, the weekend we pretended to be in love and forgot to stop.